Hello and welcome to this special conversation, part of the fifth installment of ETPrime Women Leadership Awards, which recognizes and salutes women leaders who exemplify the spirit of entrepreneurship, innovation, and excellence. Our special focus today is on women entrepreneurship in Tier 1 and 2 cities. Women run dynamic businesses spanning diverse sectors, from D2C brands to healthcare, social enterprises, and all of them shaping the economic landscape, addressing local needs with innovative solutions. Despite representing 18% of the startup ecosystem, they receive only a fraction of the funding, with just 5% of the $10 billion raised in 2023 going to women-led ventures. Beyond financial hurdles, social and cultural norms often impede their progress, while networking barriers and underrepresentation add to the challenges. In the conversation today, we will explore these complexities and hear from our panelists on empowering women entrepreneurs and unlocking their untapped potential. To share their experiences and impressions, I have with me Dr. Srimathy Kesan. She's the founder and CEO of Space Kids India, an organization dedicated to inspiring and empowering the next generation of scientists and innovators. It's very good to have you here with us, Dr. Kesan.
Thank you, Maloney. Thank you for having me here.
It's our pleasure. We have with us Seema Chaturvedi. She's the founder, AWE, Achieving Women Equity Funds, a leader committed to closing the gender gap in investment and entrepreneurship. A very warm welcome to you, Seema.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
And finally, we have with us Mitali Nikore. She's an economist whose expertise sheds light on the economic implications of gender inequality and the pathways to change. It's very good to have you here with us, Mitali.
Thanks, Maloney. Excited to be here. Thank you.
And I'm excited to start this conversation. My first question is to all of you. With women-led ventures in India rising to 18% in 5 years, which is up from 10% in 2017, and the percentage of women-led unicorns increasing from 8% to 17%, there is still a significant gender gap. From your vantage, why do you think these numbers remain low? And how can we expedite the rise of female entrepreneurs? So if we could start with you, Dr. Kesan.
Thank you. Lovely question, Maloney. You know what? There are two kinds of things that I want to segregate and speak about. One is the generation that I come from. You know, we had to cross a lot of challenges, hurdles, and everything. So we start late in life. My entrepreneurship journey started when I was 36. 16 years of sabbatical. And, suddenly you get into entrepreneurship and you are the first time entrepreneur, from your family. So much of societal pressures, family pressures, and all these things, you name every challenge I had. Okay. And until this day, and being in an industry that is, of course, male-led industry, in space. See, because when I started, talking to people that we are going to be launching satellites, people said, "Are you crazy? How can you launch satellites?" And for me, I had another setback. I was not an engineer myself. I was not from the aerospace background. So everywhere, I had all this stigma to pull me back and tell me that I was not fit for this industry. So that's where I said, I am going to prove them wrong. And whatever challenges come, I'm going to be the first one in the country to be launching 26 satellite missions until this day. And we are holding that title, and it's just our organization. Well, that's my story. Now coming to the Gen Z, the Gen Z has got all power, right from the college days. They have this power of funding, they have grants, they have everything possible, but yet the parental pressures, because I've almost spoken to 500,000 children across the country about the future. And you know what they say? Girls, marriage is in the card. When even, they may be doing BTech in biotechnology, They're bright students who want to get into PhD and everything, but still parents are still focused on that stigma of getting them married. They say you get married, you do anything after that. But after that, how is life? You have a child, you have family to take care. Come on. When that zeal and enthusiasm is there, I think we should be there. Then the progress is, 10x. But unfortunately, all these things are binding us still. And beyond all that, to step forward and to take that first step, I think is a little challenging. But once you take that first step, you don't want to go back. That's a sweet spot. That's a real sweet spot. And I'm so happy to see women in finances here along with me. I'm so excited because always numbers are, oh my God. Women and STEM don't go together. Anywhere I go, this is a big taboo. That's what they say. Women and STEM. Oh my God, how can you do this? Space, how can you do this? So everywhere this question is, how can you, how can you, how can you? I mean, we want to come front. We want to push ourselves and move forward. Don't pull us down. We can do it. So I think there is a lot of energy now with all the girls. They are coming up, fighting all the challenges. So these two, I think, are coming in a way, helping each other. So the Gen Z is supporting our generation, and we are coming up with innovative ideas to solve a lot of issues in the industry.
No, that's fantastic. And, hopefully we see greater progress. Seema, from your vantage, as a funder, how do you, see this, and what is the trend line telling you?
Well, thank you again for having me join this great conversation, and very relevant and important. From our vantage point, we've actually seen this evolve, because back in the day, everything that Dr. Kesan spoke of, we have seen and in fact lived that journey. We are optimistic, and we are seeing the trajectory is upward in terms of the progress that we're seeing. However, we would love it to be more steep. Right now, also, and I echo the sentiment of Dr. Kesan in terms of emphasizing the fact that while there is progress, it's not fast enough. So clearly, it is said that there's, say, by varying estimates, there's anywhere between 130 to 190 years where the number of years it'll take to get to gender equity, which is kind of a little too long for any one of us to wait. And all of us are motivated to try and move the needle in our lifetimes. So we are optimistic, but we would like to steepen the curve in terms of the growth we can accomplish.
Mitali, your views.
So I think, Miloni, we have to look at the labor force participation rate of women in India. It's intricately tied to the entrepreneurship conversion rate, right? Because the question you asked is about entrepreneurship. Now, I'm a new entrepreneur. I'm 34. I've been running my business since I was 27. And I'm literally the only woman-led policy advisory firm for governments in this country, even today. There are other women, of course, partners of other consulting firms and the like, but they are not the only women who are running their firms. They're running it either with their husbands or with other partners. I'm literally the only one. And even today, right? Like, it's been so many years and we haven't seen an entry. Why is that? It's because there are barriers. There are barriers to entry, because when you're running a policy advisory firm, you have to have the ability to take long gestation periods between the payments that come to you, right? You have to take time. You have to pay your team. You don't know when your client is going to pay you. Now, if this is happening in an organized setup, in large cities, imagine what this working capital crisis would be like for a woman-led MSME in a tier 2 city, right? Because today we are focusing on tier 1 and tier 2. So that's why I'm telling you that even for a tier 1, it's very hard, right? Because I have 50 people on my rolls and I have to pay their salaries, and I don't know when my client is going to pay me. And half the time I can't ask because they are government clients, right? So this is a real challenge. But on a like positive note, what I would say is that there is a certain proportion of young educated women who are aspiring to become entrepreneurs,
Right.
right? That aspiration level has changed. And when I look at my own generation of millennials, not Gen Zs, we are very well poised to start those businesses, right? At in our ages of like early 30s, mid 30s. But the problem that is faced by a mid 30s woman in India, we know this. It's unpaid care work. There is a child in the picture, or maybe multiple children in the picture. There is care work for your elderly parents. There is care work for long term dependent adults, right? You could have any sort of care responsibilities. And unlike other countries where you have care services and care infrastructure available, in
Sure.
India, that care infrastructure is either completely out of reach, affordability wise, or it's just not there. And this is, completely out of line with government regulations, because as per the Maternity Benefits Act, since 2017, all working establishments, if they have more than 50 workers, female workers, more than 50 workers, have to have a creche. But we know that the compliance to this regulation is almost nil. So, now we are advising Government of India on a number of strategies to revitalize the care economy, to sort of bring in more and more investment into care services and infra, in order to unlock a whole new segment of the economy where women can even lead businesses, but also to provide women the time and space that they need to, be able to share the load, not only within their families, which is also getting better, but also with, professional services when they need it.
Okay. But would you all three agree that the needle is moving? Though, the speed at which it is moving is something
Yeah.
that we discussed, but the needle is moving, definitely.
Absolutely.
So
That's a happy
just we are
thing.
deciding. That is,
Yeah.
that is a
Yeah.
positive development. That's a positive.
Absolutely positive,
All right. My next questions are for Seema, you, and Dr. Kesan, you. Question is that, the share of funding for women-led startups has surged from 11% to 20%. So what has contributed to this increase? And what does this trend line now indicate to us?
The reality of the background, just to give some context, is while the government of India has done a phenomenal job in coming up with schemes that specifically promote women entrepreneurship and have mudra loans and similar such loan products, sometimes collateral free, the reality is that any debt requires collateral at a particular scale. And the reality also is that collateral is usually not in the name of the woman, as in most homes are not either the wife is or the woman in the family does not have access to the home as collateral. Even if she's on the name, the family would say, "Are you crazy? We're not risking our home for growing your business." And the bias is so strong in not allowing for access to collateral. And without collateral, banks find it difficult to continue lending because they have a business model which is mostly predicated on access to capital, the cash flow business. So, a few things, and I want to go back to your comment about while the unicorns of, and as a venture equity fund, we see that as an opportunity because the equity has to underwrite or build or provide for building of the debt leverage that a company can take. I see it as an opportunity. It is not as appreciated by other investors because for please understand the cycle of a company's growth. When you need funding the most as a woman founder is typically in the early years before you institutionalize your company. And that is where the biggest bottleneck is because that's, I call it the valley of death. That's kind of where you don't have collateral, you don't have as much access to equity because venture as a category, which is typically the pool of capital that'll come in earlier, is very driven by subjective um, modes because there isn't a ton of data to analyze. As the companies get bigger, they institutionalize their process, the companies, their financials, etc. So you basically at the early stage are betting on the founder. Now, it's human tendency for people to invest in something that they're familiar with. And typically, if the money is controlled by men, uh, as in the venture industry is significantly very male dominated, those men will invest in people who are men, and for the simple reason that they're more comfortable with the delivery capability, or they're more familiar in terms of will that person deliver. And I'm not saying this is necessarily always conscious bias, but there's always this unconscious bias. And the amount of times, we have seen, in fact, including ourselves, at some times, of saying, and we have to be very mindful of not letting this bias come into play, where the questioning from a venture capitalist for a woman founder is more about will she be managing the risk, versus the questions that get asked of a man, which is how much of an upside can you get? And that right there impedes the venture model, because the venture model is predicated on how much growth you can achieve. So if you've moved your head away from looking at opportunity to managing risk, you're not investing strictly with that venture mindset. And that unintentional bias can also weigh down. So we're not out of the woods. To answer your question more directly, yes, there is growth, but the growth is painstakingly slow, and it needs some serious intervention. And I've written an op-ed on this issue, and this was a few years ago. And fundamentally, it goes back to the whole Hindi adage, which says "Jiski lati uski bes." So it loosely translates, if you extrapolate to the world of funding, the person who's making the capital allocation decision has to be familiar with the concept and the type of businesses that they can be comfortable with. And this actually becomes a great area to promote women in the asset business, management business, or the fund management business. So yes, there is growth, but it's way slower, and I don't want to undermine how difficult it is for women to access venture equity.
Right. No, this is, you really delved deep into it and given us context, especially about the biases that exist for women who try to access venture funding. Linked to that, Dr. Kesan, is my question to you. Talk to us about your challenges that you faced when you attempted to access funding. And any what have you learned from that? Anything that you can pass on to perhaps other women who might be going through a similar journey?
I would literally say copy, Seema. Because, oh my God, as she rightly mentioned about the collateral and everything, the only collateral we have is the jewelry, the traditional ones, the jewelry that we possess, and that too, without the family knowing, we need to do something with the friends who will not open their mouth. And we have to get some hand loans. It's very difficult because we need at least 5 or 6 technical people. And for me, my sector is totally different. I'm the only woman in that industry, and trying to do something, and nobody would give a look at you, until you prove in science and technology. So we had to literally launch 4 orbital satellites for people to say, what comments people would pass in the Facebook, in social media. Oh, ye kuch nahi janti hai, ye kya karegi? I mean, literally brutal comments. Shark Tank, I wanted, because our industry is such that unlike the beauty products or unlike the fashion industry, it's cash driven, it's intense finance driven. We need to start with 10 crores. That's where we can do a prototype. For a testing, we need about, 1 crore. So people wouldn't understand this industry first. And more so if it's woman led, totally no. All the more if you're not technically sound, zero. So I'm fighting all these challenges by, bootstrapping, doing things, whatever possible, without the, well, my family, everybody's going to see this, but without the knowledge of my family, I had to do a lot of jugads to get the money. and move to this place where we are actually spinning off to the commercial side. And I'm working on funding, Seema. Everywhere, this is what I have. The big issue is, okay, will they be able to deliver? Will she be able to deliver? This will she be able to deliver is a big question mark. 10 lakhs, 20 lakhs, they feel women can handle. But if I'm going to be talking in $1 billion, their eyebrows rise. I mean, why? Deep tech needs so much money. Please understand, technology and industry varies. You have to infuse, and space is the future. We are doing such cutting edge technologies. We are bringing in the lightest deployer. We are really proud to have launched the world's lightest satellite, and that too first time in a NASA's rocket, and then ISRO's rocket and everything. In spite of proving all this, oh, ये बच्चों के साथ करती है. This is edtech company. It's not edtech. For heaven's sake, I'm telling it's not edtech. It's a commercial space organization wherein I am using the youth of the country. There is a huge difference. I am not using the speciality of technologists who've had double PhD and everything. No, the country is a youthful country, and I want to give opportunity to these kids who think out of the box. And for the tomorrow, we need out of the box thinkers. So that's the reason I'm working with these students, and I have to pay them. They have to run their families, because these kids, some do not have parents. It's their support that they are, and they're all from tier 2, tier 3 towns. So to come here to learn the language, to do all these things is huge, is humongous, I should say. But yet we are grounded. We want to make it happen, because we are coming up with the world's lightest deployer. The deployer cost is going to be drastically changed when we are going to be having our launch next month. Working hard, this industry going to be. So I am talking to the fund. I'm talking to the VCs, and I'm explaining to them, this is what. Oh, okay, maybe if somebody can, come to you first, we will wait. We will see how you perform, and probably then, that puts you off. That really hurts you. I mean, and all these mudra loans and all that, Seemaji, what you had mentioned, is all for 20 lakhs, 50 lakhs grants. With that, we cannot do anything. So for deep tech, I would say the government should think about it and exclusively do something for the women-led entrepreneurs. Until and unless you give that chunk and trust, first that trust that we can deliver, that's very important.
Seema, would you say that, someone like Srimathy could get venture funding with the kind of capabilities that they have shown so far? Or what would you say could be some of the stumbling blocks that an organization such as hers could possibly face?
Well, so, fundamentally what we have to recognize is that the funding does come in different shapes and forms, and not all funding is suited to every organization. So let's get that basic right. Sometimes, venture funding by its very nature is essentially a class of type of equity which wants to back rapid scalable growth. So I'm not commenting on Dr. Kesan's business, but in general, the model, because you're coming in early, which is high risk. So high risk demands high reward, and you walk in with the notion that you could be facing companies that might go under just because for a variety of reasons that a company can fail, right? So first, to clarify, venture is not suited for every business. It's a function of the type of business, the type of industry. Can that business scale in a manner that it has grown so much that the investor can gain from the capital appreciation? Because unlike a traditional public equity, which does pay you dividend as another form of income, the only income a venture capitalist will have is the illiquid asset class that it is the capital appreciation, which then presupposes a rapid scale of the top line of the company, and essentially anything that feeds valuation. So the point here is, will venture capital fund something that is scalable and can deliver essentially rapid growth with a high, even though it comes with high risk. That is the category venture would fund, a capitalist would fund. The other sources of capital for that have come up in other parts of the world also. I mean, there's obviously government sources and there's grants sometimes. But I tell all companies the best source of capital is your customer. So revenue is the best source of capital, and even better, and the best source, better than revenue is profits. And the interesting thing is, women are very cash flow and profit minded. So I want to, to an earlier question you or comment you made about unicorns. Look, that's a great thing to have, but you can't but that doesn't have to be the goal of every business. A business which is growing year over year, 30%, is delivering and doing just fine and has profits, sometimes can be far more powerful than having some businesses that grow blitz scale and
Right.
yet don't have the cash flows to support. So
Right.
again, every
Be
industry,
sustainable and be resilient and
yeah,
just keep growing. So stable
No,
growth.
here I would like to add in this industry, space industry, to actually, see some profits is going to take at least 5 to 7 years. It's not a single product that you can just sell off the rack and, you can make your profits and you can show all that. This is more technology where you have to keep speaking and once prove, to prove that technology, it takes about 2 years because
Right.
it's so finance driven. So, to prove that 2 years and after that, you have to build, sustain. So, that is going to take at least 5 to 7 years. And that is where the whole catch is. And most of the time, people feel that, they need to start getting revenues in end of second year, third year. So, how was your repayment and, all these things. So, these questions. So, I think the best would be if, government would support such people and such women-led, deep tech entrepreneurs with grants or loans or something that could support them and not put pressure on them.
All right. Mitali, you wanted to make a point.
Yeah. So I think I'll now come in, Miloni, on a couple of things, which, both Seema and Dr. Kesan have highlighted. I'll wear my policymaker hat instead of wearing my entrepreneur hat for these comments. So the first thing is on mudra loans. We've spoken a lot about mudra loans in this conversation. I want to make it clear that the intentional target of a mudra loan is not the people in this conversation.
Correct.
Right? The actual average value of mudra loans for women is at 30,000 rupees over the last 5 years that have been taken. Yes, 70% of mudra loans have been taken by women, but their average value has been 30,000 versus the amount that has been taken by men. The average value is 90,000. So even in your, tier 3, tier 4 rural areas where the mudra loan uptake is the highest, the average value that is taken by male-led enterprises is 3 times that of female-led enterprises because of many reasons, as we discussed. The aspirational level itself of women entrepreneurs in rural areas and smaller towns is not that high. The idea is I will take a small loan, run a small shop, do my own small thing so that the amount that I'm earning is enough to meet my consumption expenses. My discretionary income should rise, and this is not a contribution to household income. We have met and interviewed a number of women enterprises who are primarily nano enterprises. They are not even, employing more than 2 people or 1 person even. They are like self, enterprises, and they just want to earn a bit of money and they want to work flexibly. So, mudra loans is not something when we are talking about tier 1, tier 2, high tech, etc. Now, the scheme that came out for high tech and for deep investments, as Dr. Kesan was asking, that how can government's patient capital come in to complement the venture capital funding that's available in the market, which is an impatient form of capital. And when we bring in financing from multilateral development organizations, or we bring in financing from an IFC or a World Bank to complement the government financing, that is concessionary financing, which is meant to invest in companies like a company like a space company, which will say I need 10 years to show returns, right? Now, in order to do that, in order to convince, that investment to happen, you have to convince government policymakers to say that space is a priority sector. Right now, the thinking has been that there are 4 or 5 priority sectors where I see women entrepreneurs, right? I see them in food processing. I see them in textiles. I see them in, now I'm starting to see them in nursing or in education. So let me, prioritize those sectors. But tech isn't part of that. So I think this is what we are advising governments as well, that there is a need to move away from traditional women dominated, low value, low productivity industries to industries which are fast growing, which are big contributors to the economy, not only including tech, but also infrastructure industries like logistics, like renewable energy, like, climate action, like water and sanitation, which are, and now the care economy, all of which can have high returns and have a huge sizable interest amongst women entrepreneurs in tier 1 and tier 2 cities. Now, but how do you bridge all of this as a government, right? Because as a government, your biggest problem is asymmetric information. How do I judge whether I'm, investing in a woman entrepreneur A versus B? Which one is going to be successful? Because as a private sector, as a Seema, she has access to a lot more data, from a number of other sources about consumption, etc., which governments actually are not supposed to have, right? So there is a lot of policy work that is happening on alternative sources of, proving your collateral value, because obviously you don't have land. So proving your collateral through consumption expenses, through consumption data, through data on, your investing habits, on your credit scores, which the RBI is taking a huge lead in developing. And those are going to help women entrepreneurs in the days going forward. So I would say that, the government intervention is no longer restricted to having, an expanded version of Startup India, an expanded version of Stand Up India, and having, alternative credit score mechanisms as policies, which can help both the private and public sector. And the last point is on fintech, right? Because when you look at experiments like Gift City, like we all know that Gift City is coming up in Gandhinagar. There's a huge, relaxation of fintech norms and regulations because it's going to be an SEZ. Now, how many women are able to get financing in Gift City is a separate target that the government of Gujarat has established. So I think it's very important to, also give the government credit where it's due, that they are thinking about Nari Shakti, they are thinking about, women-led development, and this is reflecting in the policy actions that is being taken. And of course, we are constantly telling them that this has to be done.
All right. No, very good points raised, Mitali, especially, when it comes to the government attempting to bridge, especially the policy gap, as you pointed out, that exists. Seema, I'd like to ask you, and I think this bears out what Mitali was telling us. According to PwC, Bangalore, Delhi, NCR, and Mumbai, they account for 82% of all startup funding, or at least they did by the end of 2022. Now, on top of all the challenges, that we've heard women entrepreneurs face, speak about the challenges of securing funding when you're starting a business and you're not in a metro. And the kind of role, that private and public sector that needs to play to ensure that startups beyond metros can secure funding.
I am a firm believer that there is great wealth in the Bharat, in the smaller towns, fundamentally because that's where 70% of the population lives. And where they live, they consume. And when they consume, there's a market that is created. Unfortunately, however, the reason again that there is more of an aggregation towards sources of capital in the big cities is because those sources of capital have to show an exit to their customers. Even if you're a bank that you need to, even if you're a bank, so not commenting on the bank, but on the necessarily on the venture industry, we have to remember it's somebody else's money that the venture fund is managing, right? And the venture fund investor, the fund manager, has to return that money to their LPs or to their own investors. Now the question is, where is the probability of exit going to be the highest? And the general, again, that is also a bias, but it's in some cases borne by real world experience of saying the ability of to be able to secure that exit would be higher if they are in a place where there are other sources of capital. Adding to which, it is also a function of being centers of excellence in their own existence, where do you have enough resources? So, the exit is predicated on how fast the company can scale. To scale, you need customers, you need people to deliver, you need processes, and your product has to be robust, and the product has to be robust, built on the backs of competent, capable people. So can the company be situated in a location which is in a smaller town or a city or even a rural area where there is a, a, a feed of all of these raw materials, essentially, as I talked about, coming down to the people and the pool of talent, right? And if there is a scarcity, there's a reason why centers of excellence in terms of geographic areas develop. That's because the whole supply chain is there, and then you have the talent of people that can help grow that that business to scale. So if there is a way to disaggregate it and allocate that availability of capital, which is human resource capital, who are trained to be able to deliver, then that contributes to a distributed model of value creation in smaller towns and cities. But because there is often an aggregation in a bigger city and town, which so the money follows where there is opportunity. If the perception of opportunity is a sustainable opportunity is in a bigger town, that's because there's a flight of talent into these bigger cities looking for money. So it becomes a vicious cycle. So, there's a reason why Bay Area, for example, is or was, there's a reason why Bangalore is an attraction for tech talent. Now I'm noticing a lot of climate tech come about in hubs of Delhi, NCR region, or even Bangalore for sure. But again, that is where you find talent, that is where you find markets. And if a successful business is fundamentally a confluence of the markets, the company being in the right place to deliver, and the company being supported by suppliers and people and talent to make their products available to those markets. So
So,
while the markets in this equation, if all of those 4 or 5 things are in sync, then it's a great business. But if there's any one of those elements not in sync, that business does not fly. So you got to be at the right place, the right time, servicing the right opportunity. And while as I began by saying, I believe in the opportunity of Bharat, the question is, are those businesses able to find the talent and the resources to be able to service the market demand in
so
that particular revenue model?
with everything that you're saying, I mean, the challenges for women-led enterprises,
Is
then
compounded.
that lens, I mean, just goes up so much, right?
It is. It is. But
It just
having said that, the
compounds.
hope having said that, the hope is that there are business models that women are beginning to get very nifty about. For example, writing a social commerce platform, and I know of companies that have raised a lot of money. And every business model is different, but to be able to fundamentally align these 4 or 5 elements, and when the moons align, magic happens.
All
I
right.
think there needs to be a mind shift also, mind shift of people as to what women can do. I would, continuously harp on the same thing because women are always, branded as, for food, fashion, and, ed tech.
Yeah,
So it's a
pickle and
mindset.
papad, those are the
Huh,
enterprises that they think
exactly.
women can run.
Exactly. And so, that mind shift needs to happen, and people need to understand that we can do much more beyond all these things. And we need a lot of role models here. I always wanted to tell this. In every sector, you need role models for the future generation to look at us and, walk through the journey, or walk, in a journey that would definitely benefit the whole generation.
Right.
It's very, very important. And unfortunately, women leaders in India are a handful, and we keep talking about them. And in my industry, I mean, it's even more, faint. And girls tend to think, what are we going to do? Whom are we going to, idealize, or at least think about, or read about, and, move forward? So they always have this doubt. And that's the reason they get, they move on to the Western world. They seek help there. So they go to the universities there, and they kind of settle there. The research environment is so conducive there, the funding is so available, and the trust factor in the tech industries compared to India is much more robust there. So that's the reason most of the educated and affluent girls with a passion to drive forward, they take a flight, they just fly away. And we want to contain all of them. We want to contain all of them here. So
I mean, Dr. Kesan, I didn't take a flight. I'm educated and affluent, and I'm sitting here, and I'm not going anywhere because
I love
I'm
you
a
for
nation
that.
builder.
It's great to hear,
Mitali, because so many of them, we keep advocating this to so many children, but many of the times, the self-doubt, guilt, so many things, women undergo.
Send them,
Right.
send them to me. I will hire them, and I'm not going to let them go anywhere.
Great.
No, I think Dr. Kesan's alluding also to mentorship, right? So, and I wanted to bring this topic forth. Talk to me about mentorship. Is it working? We hear about it in a lot of forums. There's a lot of discussion about it, but on the ground, is it working, Mitali?
So, Miloni, I'll tell you, my husband actually runs a company for mentorship. It's called College Lab, and he helps kids through from ninth, class 9 to 12. So my comments are based on the observations of the more than 500 children he's helped in the last few years, right? So it's all data driven. The first challenge that is happening with the children right now is the amount of pressure that they're facing in the classrooms, right? We are talking about tier 1 and tier 2, of course. I'm not going to talk about the others because there it's a completely different set of challenges, right? We are talking about teacher shortages, etc., and the poor learning outcomes when we talk about tier 3 and below. In tier 1 and 2, we have good teachers.
We'll talk about
we
them,
have
Mitali.
investment. Yeah, so we have investments that are going on in tier 1 and 2. The schools are like world class, right? Even sports facilities and everything, they are being set up. The problem is the pressure, the amount that you are being asked to achieve as a class 9th or a class 10 student, and then definitely the sponsorship and mentorship, right? What happens is, for a woman entrepreneur, if she's starting, like when I started, I didn't have any mentors. I in fact had a lot of people in the industry who were waiting to pull me down, including women. Women who are above a certain age as well. They are also saying, no, I don't want this young person to enter. So for a young woman entrepreneur, there are a lot of barriers which don't exist for older women. And for us, it's much harder. Again, I think Seema ji can also attest to this. If I, as a 35-year-old or a 34-year-old, go to raise funding, they'll say, is your dad involved in the business? Is your husband involved in the business? So it's the mentorship that you want, the sponsorship that you want, not only mentorship that you want from older women entrepreneurs, older male entrepreneurs, who to show you the ropes. How do you win business? How do you retain your person from leaving? You have a really good person in your team, you don't want them to leave. How do you retain them? Because you can only pay them so much, right? The retention has to happen also because of their love for the organization. That's what I use to retain people. Like, no, I'm not giving you a raise. You have to believe in the vision. So, but I know that now, after, working for 5-6 years and running the business for 5-6 years, nobody taught me this. So there is definitely a lack of older women mentors, and I hope that my generation, as millennials, can be the older women mentors for the Gen Zs, for the Gen Alphas who are now passing out of the schools.
All right.
Sure.
Seema,
Melanie,
you have
sorry,
to leave.
here, 1 minute.
Just 1 second, Dr. Kesan. If we have Seema with us.
Yes.
Seema, quick comments. We know that you have to leave, but just final comments from you on this entire issue of mentorship, and do you really see that driving women entrepreneurship?
So, without a doubt, yes. I agree with everything that's been said about the need for role models, but I want to elevate that discussion to not just mentors, but also sponsors. What you need is a sponsor who's actually going to push you. And not just guide you. Yes, you need somebody who's seen the movie before and telling you how the movie can end and what things you can do differently, which is the nature of a mentor. But you also need somebody who can actually be your advocate, and that is the level of how we need to elevate our game. Because if you're not in the room, somebody should be batting for you, somebody should be speaking for you. And if we can include and encourage, and that's the role of creating that support network around you, who are then speaking on your behalf when you're not available because you can't be everywhere, but you who can be speaking for you and batting for you when you're not there. A lot needs to happen in that space. I will tell you again, as the optimist that I am, women are natural networkers just because of the roles that we have traditionally played. So there is a proclivity and there's general inclination to benefit from it. We just need to make that happen. I'll end with that, idea of saying once women have been given exposure to opportunities, they see firsthand the benefit it drives for their families, there is no stopping her. So you know I'm excited for what the future holds, and I think we live in amazing times where we have motivated policymakers like Mitali and entrepreneurs like Dr. Kesan backing, and we are as venture capitalists excited that this is a set of people that we want to back and serve and help them grow, because in doing that we are helping our investors, but we're also seeding what I fundamentally think is nation building.
Yeah, Dr. Kesan, you have the final say now.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to continue, or I wanted to rebuke what Mitali mentioned. You know what? Yeah, people say young women have problem, but I would say the older women have issues, a lot more issues. The women who can survive and do business is only between the ages of 30 and 40. They just give you 10 years. The society just give you 10 years. Beyond 40, it is like, you're old, you have a family to take care, children grow up, so their weddings, and how much of the time are you going to spend in your business? So the venture capitalists have huge doubts, and comes menopause. So it's not only it's not only everything. I would say it's all the thought process, physiological, psychological, everything needs to change. There needs to be a huge change in our thought process, and only then I think women can come out and do good business. And I wanted to tell you this one particular thing. I've been working with 750 rural girl children from Kashmir to Kanyakumari to build a satellite called the Azadi Sat for the 75th Independence Day of India, the celebration. So when I had this proposal, people looked at me and they said, why only girls? Why only girls? First question. And my own team, why only girls? Okay, I had to fight and bring them all to cut the story short. At home, they had so many issues. All these are government school children. They had to fight with their family. They had to fight with their school. The school principals would say, ये लड़कियां इसके लिए ये काम के लिए नहीं हो सकता है. टेक्नोलॉजी और लड़कियां नहीं जाएंगे. इनका क्या करेंगे मैम आप? शादी करने वाले हैं ये बच्चे. Straight on my face, I had so many phone calls being slammed. So to pull them out, it was a humongous task. So happy they've done this. Now children, 750 ambassadors in the country. We have space ambassadors in the country. We're so proud of it. So
Excellent.
proud of it. And
Yes.
now what I would say is, I want these children to be rewarded by at least the school community, the local community, the state government, the central government. Of course, Dr. Jitendra Singh was kind enough to come on air and, come live on television and congratulated these girls. But that's not the end. They should have been rewarded more so that, they walk with pride and they bring 7 lakh children more. So the rural children are lacking so much of awareness of a particular subject altogether.
Right.
So how are we going to? So this, I think we have to, it has to be an inclusive society where we are able to mentor everybody equally. The awareness has to be there. Well, I can keep talking about this. I'm sorry, I know.
Dr. Kesan, you really pointed out to the systemic barriers that all of us will have to confront, and all of these barriers that hinder women's progress, especially in entrepreneurship, right from access to capital to entrenched cultural biases and so many others that we discussed. But thank you so very much, Dr. Kesan, Mitali, Nikore, and also Seema, Chaturvedi, for your thoughts and for your time today and for sharing with us, so many rich insights. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Thank you.